In this video, we are going to put one of cycling's most enduring myths to rest. Because over the years, one or two pieces of poor quality research have suggested that cycling can be detrimental to men's health, specifically by causing erectile dysfunction and potentially even prostate cancer. Now, to the casual observer, you can kind of understand why that might make sense. I mean, you look at a bike saddle and you think, well, it's probably not going to be as comfortable as what you might choose to sit down and watch TV on. However, this misinformation also has taken hold among some medical professionals as well. 2 years ago, though, we spoke to top consultant urologist Anthony Koupparis, who also happens to be an Ironman. With his experience, he was therefore incredibly well placed to offer genuine insight on the topic, which he did, giving advice to people either with any of those symptoms or who are concerned by them, and explaining why the current research was a bit rubbish and why, with his clinical experience, he could see no link with cycling. However, what was lacking was robust statistical evidence to back it up. So we worked with Anthony and his team and enlisted the help of the male contingent of the Global Cycling Network audience, asking you to take part in a questionnaire. And many thousands of you did, making it the largest survey of its kind worldwide, and making the results completely watertight. Results that have been published and peer-reviewed in the Journal of Clinical Urology, showing conclusively that cycling has no negative consequences on erectile dysfunction, on prostate cancer, on chronic pelvic pain, and on lower urinary tract infections. We caught up with Anthony so that he could go through the results in a little more detail. Anthony, great to see you again. The top line conclusions from this look super encouraging. I wonder whether you could dive into the results a little bit more for us.
So you know that we've done this massive worldwide survey on the greatest number of cyclists and their associated men's health issues. So there's a long story of cycling being apparently bad for men's health. So we looked at things like prostate cancer, the risk of prostate cancer, erection problems, waterworks problems, long-term pelvic pain problems. And what we found was that the rate of those problems in this group was not only low, but it was really low compared to the general population. So really, really encouraging.
So, I mean, those results do sound fantastic, don't they? And almost then, is there like a protective element to cycling, given that the sort of reporting of symptoms was so much lower?
Yeah, well, you can't. To be fair, you can't quite say that. So we've looked at 8,000 men at a particular point in time. So the ability to fundamentally say that there's a causative association or lack of one, you can't quite say. But there's no doubt that your risk of all these problems is much lower. So in this group of 8,000 men, your risk of having a diagnosis of prostate cancer is 0.5%. Your lifetime risk of getting prostate cancer is 15%. So the rates are really, really low, dramatically lower than what you would see if you just picked 8,000 men off the street and assessed their risk of, or the number diagnosed with cancer or waterwork symptoms or any of the other variables we looked at.
Could you see from the results whether there was a link between how much people cycled and the symptoms? Because I guess that's one thing that, people could say, well, if you ride more, then presumably you'd be more likely to suffer erectile dysfunction or something like that.
And that's something that has been slightly reported in some of the previous studies. And it's been jumped on by lots of media outlets. But that was one of the things that we were mindful of before we did this. And we've done some relatively complex statistics to take into account all of the risk factors that you might have associated with a particular problem. So when we first ran the statistics without any of what we call the regression analysis, we seemed to find that your risk of having erection problems was higher if you had cycled for more years than others. But actually, when you take into account all of the other variables, actually, that was completely lost. It disappeared. And if we're looking at your risk of erectile dysfunction, in 8,000 men, their risk was less than 5%. And in a 40 to 70-year-old age group, which was about the same as ours, your risk of erectile dysfunction is as much as 50%.
Wow.
So
Okay,
again,
so
it's a factor of 10 difference between those two values.
that's incredible, isn't it? Now that surprised me a lot, to be honest with you. Was there anything that surprised you from the results?
I think I hoped so. We've talked about this before. I approached this with my cancer surgeon hat on, and I was being very critical of all of the previous data, and found that many of the studies that have been talked about before are very old. They are fundamentally flawed. There's not good quality data collection and statistical analysis. So I hoped that I was right, or we were right in what we thought. But it's really encouraging that the rates of all these problems are really, really low. And we need, as cyclists, but even as doctors, we need to change some of the information that's out there. Because even so for example, on the Macmillan Cancer website, there are some pages that are geared up to advise GPs, for example, on when to take a PSA blood test, which is gives you an indication of your risk of prostate cancer. And it says, don't take it if someone has been cycling for the day or two before. Now, from what we found here, actually, it makes absolutely no difference whatsoever. Your risk of being investigated for prostate cancer, if you are a heavy cyclist, is really, really low. So I think we need to change. Not only do we need to get it out there to the wider public, we need to get it out there to the apparent experts in the field for us to change our guidelines.
Well, thanks so much, Anthony, for taking the time to talk us through the results. You look like you're in the middle of what I would imagine is a busy day at hospital. So yeah, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll hopefully see you again soon.
Yep, it's nice to speak to you again.
You know, it's funny, as a lifelong cyclist, I couldn't help but look at those stories in the media over the years telling me of the horrific damage that I must be doing to my penis because I rode a bike, and thinking that something didn't quite stack up. And so I'm absolutely delighted that, along with the help of the largest group of cyclists ever surveyed on this topic, that we have definitively answered this question once and for all. And I'm delighted not for my own sake, but for all those people that have been really worried about this, or that may even have been put off cycling because of it. The health benefits of cycling far outweigh the negatives. But that said, do not take it as an excuse to put your head in the sand if you are suffering from any symptoms. Go and seek medical help. We men are notoriously rubbish at looking after our own health. And so please, if your body is giving you any warning signs, take note. Lastly, I would just like to say a huge thank you to all of you who did take part in that survey. Your time and effort, I hope, has been worthwhile.